We exist. We exist a little bit far away from everything and everybody, but we exist. And that's what matters. So, starting a new commission, you know, all the good stuff. I can actually show you. You can see there's some stuff over here that we already got done. And all of our fabrics came in. So we're going to use some of this black minky for the headband. Just that it's a bit more comfortable to wear, and it's secure. It's a security thing more than it is a comfort thing. But I like to use the minky or the fleece specifically because it's a softer fabric. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Let's see if we can't add in image so you guys can kind of see the guy we're working on. Oop. Except I kind of want to crop him. Can I? Oh, here we go. I'm gonna crop it like 50, 25, there we go. And then we're gonna crop this by 100, no. There we go. We're just gonna stick our little guy. He's really big right now, but we're gonna scale him down here for you guys. So we got like a little reference of who we're working on right now. Hello! You exist! You wanna see the things that we 3D printed? So, beforehand, because I was waiting on a bunch of stuff to come in, I got a bunch of stuff 3D printed. So, these eye blanks I've had printed for a while. We've got those. I've got some pre-printed teeth. I tend to print these in bulk when I first get my filaments. Just because we have issues of keeping them dry sometimes after a while. So I find that I get the best prints when I first get my filaments. So I try to print as much as I can when I first get them. So we got a couple different sizes of teeth. We might have to do it like this. We might have to do 2 smalls, 2 bigs. It depends on what we end up with for the actual muzzle at the end of the day. But we got those in our eye blanks already done. And then over the weekend, I got these really, really big sets of antlers printed. So those will go right up top nice and big like. They could be considered a little stabby. They're not like super pointy or anything, but they could poke an eyeball out. They did. They turned out so nice. The files that we ended up using, I did have to simplify it a little bit because it had so many faces that my computer couldn't load it. It had like over 1 million faces or something like that. It was something stupid. But it does have all of these little designs in the print itself, if the light's behaving for you. You can kind of see there's lines in the print, so they are textured. Ultimately, you're not going to see the circle bases that are on the bottom of the antlers. Those will be covered up by fur, and all you'll see is the antler itself. So that's how we're going with that. And then they are actually fairly lightweight, all things considered. We could probably actually weigh them and find out how much they weigh on their own. And then we have our fan mount, because they're going to have a mouth fan. And this lets you remove the mouth fan. Very important. My alarm's going off because I need to stream at 4, guys. Actually, I do kind of want to weigh them. I can get my little scale here. Move. I want to see how much, because they should be about half a kilogram. Realistically, but I don't actually know how much they ended up weighing on their own. 0.24 kilograms, or half a pound, which isn't that bad. the thing to consider is that normally a fursuit head weighs a total of 3 pounds at most. And that would be at least for me. For my heads, they usually weigh about 3 pounds at most. And that, is determined by, the size of the ears and the muzzle and all that jazz. So half a pound on top of that is actually a lot heavier than what my normal fursuits are. So that's interesting. But now, I gotta get my hot glue gun out, because I didn't do that. Kind of hard to glue. I gotta buy more hot glue. Guys, I'm almost out of hot glue. It's a problem. I usually buy hot glue by, the 5-pound box, so I get, thousands of glue sticks at once. But it's cheaper that way. Buying in bulk like that. I can get them for a bit cheaper than buying the little packs of hot glue. So I still have many, many sticks of hot glue. But this is probably not enough for this one commission, so I'm going to have to order more soon. And I'm actually going to have these out. Because fursuit heads take a lot of hot glue. They take a lot of hot glue. Alright, so one of these is the right piece. I don't know if it's this one or not. Well, it's not this one. It should be this one. Yeah. So what this is going to do, which I don't remember actually. Let me double check. This is just my default at this point. No matter who's commissioning, they're going to get a bumper. They do want room for glasses. Okay. So this is what that's for. This is going to give us our buffer for wearing glasses inside our head. So we have room in front of our head. And these kind of act as fill-ins for glasses, because most glasses are not that big. So it's a nice little fill-in for that. Oh, he's trying so hard not to bark. Someone just came home. But I gotta wait for the hot glue gun to warm up. Again, I should have thought this through before I started streaming. You finally have enough what? Common sense? Money? Hot glue sticks? What does the buddy has? Oh! Treat for the Bingus and the baby mans, buddy! I'll never have those. Here, hold on, let me see actually. Let me pan the camera. You can see the mess that is my pile of various shit over there. That's actually a garbage bag. It's a Walmart bag I'm using as a garbage bag, and then a bag of paper and my sewing machine. But that's where those things live for now, because we're running out of space in the office. We got cookies. Yes. Yeah, I got the cookies. Maybe your brother will come running. You came running. Yeah, you gonna be a good girl? Oh, such a good bingo. Can I get a boop? Oh, yes. How about a shake? Oh, good girl. Forrest, you gotta sit. Good boy. Can I get a boop? Oh, good boy. Stay sitting, please. I didn't even ask you yet. Down. Be dead. Yeah, I know your sister's in the way, but be dead anyway. Be dead on her. Good job! Ah, dorks. Dorks. These are training treats. So they're lower calorie. They're meant for them to have a decent amount of them. And these ones are beef flavor. Beef. And they smell really good, and I kind of want to eat them, but I shouldn't because that's unhealthy. It's a bad idea. But the dogs got their Treatos. You're such good dogs. Yes, you are. You can see Bingus's butt over here off camera. Say, huh? You got comfy butt? Ah! Hot glue! It's fine. Yeah. So it's very important that I know which side I am putting against the head. I need to put the actual edge, the thickness coming off the head, because otherwise what we'll end up with is a very, because like you can see here it's thinner than it is like right here and stuff from how I cut it, and I'm very bad at cutting foam, so I use the actual thickness of the foam rather than the strip I cut. Even though I try to get it to be an inch, I'm not magic, you know, so we gotta use our brain cells. Oh, hello! Hello, lucky you. You got here right at the beginning. We haven't done shit yet. We're just working on getting the head strap figured out, because this will create the room for your glasses. Got the Dog's Wells hip joint jerky, and it smells so good. Oh, not the jerky. See, the issue is like these days first off, Forrest has a very sensitive tummy. Everything makes him shit his pants. So it's very hard to find something that won't make him shit his pants, so he's going to be farting up a storm later. And Bingus is also kind of getting that way. She's just old, so I think it's just a lot for her guts these days to do different Treatos. So we just kind of stuck with the stuff that she used when she was working. And a lot of times we'll just give them their food as a treat. They don't care. Food's food. They're both fatties. So then this... This is the headband that the rest of the fursuit head will be built off of. Now, when I first started making suits, I didn't used to wrap my headbands. That's what we're going to do next, is we're going to wrap them. But the issue with not wrapping a headband is that the only thing holding this to this foam is glue. And eventually, it will stop doing that. So I wrapped them in fabric and glue that on this edge, so it wraps around, and this is where that point is, and then everything gets built on top of that. And that keeps it from coming apart inside the head, because that's the last thing you want, is for your head strap to come off. Is it an easy fix? Sure, but do we want to? No. Yeah, well, he hasn't been eating much, so I know a lot of times dogs, like just animals in general, even people, get really sick whenever they start eating again, just because their stomach's not used to doing things. Like, it'll give them yucky tummies and stuff. Alright, so we've got our black minky. It doesn't have to be black, but since we're using black minky for the suit anyway, we're going to use black. And this is going to be very difficult for you guys to see, I feel like. Just because it's black on a black table. If it would focus, good lord. But we're just gonna... Solid is better than nothing. Solid is good. Alright. So then we're going to... And I specifically hot glued it on the head like this because we want it to be curved. If we did it flat, it would not be comfy. It does make a difference how you hot glue stuff to your foam. So we're going to do this. I didn't go all the way to the edge yet, but that's okay. You can add more in a second. Hi, baby mans. He's like, you gave me cookie, where's the rest? I wish for more. You already had a treat. Bingus popped her out. She's like, cookies? I love cookies. There we go. So now we've got this. dogs, they're being weird. And then we're going to glue this edge as well. We're going to flip it and we're going to stick it. It helps if it's all actually flat though. You don't want a shit ton of wrinkles. And then we're not going to glue, this is very important, we're not going to glue on the elastic because this is the part that touches your forehead. And we don't want hot glue lumps on our forehead because that would be very, very uncomfy. And we don't want to be uncomfy. Uncomfy would be a problem. We also don't necessarily want to compress our headband. But we do want to pull that fabric nice and snug. Around our headband. So now we've got a nice comfy minky headband right here. And then I'm just going to do a little bit more on this side, and that's going to be our raw edge that faces out. There we go. Now this part, I'm not caring about if it's pretty right now. I can trim it up and clean it up in a second. I just want to get it off the yard of fabric. Cool. There we go. Turn this side up to look a little prettier. Cool beans. And now we've got our nice, comfy edge strap. So, now we get to do the fun part, and that's deciding how we're doing our head, which means I'm going to have to actually look at his reference sheet a little bit now to decide how we're doing this. Because he's got like a very wide shape to his head, and I feel like a lot of that is cheek floof, don't get me wrong. Honestly, he's pretty square. He's pretty square. So we could either do 1/2 inches on both sides. I think that would make him a little bit too narrow, though. So I'm going to do full 1 inch all the way around, both for his muzzle and for the sides of his head. Because what that's going to do is that's going to widen his head a bit compared to the head base. We could actually... I might do a 1/2 inch on the front. Tippy tippy, tippy tippy. I might just let me show you. Let me show you, because this takes a little bit of a explaining. Damn it! Oh well. I tried to put the Velcro facing outwards so it doesn't snag on hair. Sometimes I forget though. Doesn't cause that much issues anyway. So I'm gonna put a bar here, a bar here, and a bar here. What matters is the thickness, right? This is a 1-inch square. So if I put 1 inches out here on the sides, it'll make his head wider. And then on the front, if we do 1/2 inch, that'll help it. We could do 1 inch either way. But we're kind of trying to get, because if I don't do 1 inches, he's going to end up with a very narrow, flat head. Like, it's going to be kind of like a fish, right? Like, it's just going to be very flat. So we're going to do 1 inches on the sides. What I'm debating is whether I should also do a 1 inch on the front or a 1/2 inch on the front. It's not going to make too much of a difference, but I think doing a 1/2 inch will help with that more rounded, wider head shape compared to a narrow sort of fishy shape. So that is all I have. I have no other info for any of us. But what I am going to do is I'm going to cut this on a straight edge. Good lord. I'm going to do this to here. Alright, so this will be the bottom of our head. And our muzzle will come off right here. Which will take me some doodling later. I actually need to unplug the hot glue gun. So here is my issue with the hot glue guns I have. Unplug. Oh, Bingus, your fat ass is on the cords. Yeah. I can't temperature control these guns. And since it's a high temp gun, it makes the glue very liquidy. Which normally is pretty good. But it also means it takes longer to cool down and actually attach to shit. So we're gonna have to be patient right now because it was too hot. We're gonna go like this. And this is probably the most precarious stage of the fursuit head, like building this frame and then building off of that. Because there's not really a whole lot holding it all together. There's just glue. There's 3 little 1-inch squares of glue holding this together. But when the head is actually built over the whole thing, there's going to be glue here, there's going to be the head here, it's going to be all around. And then when it's furred, the furring actually does a lot for the structure itself because it will not only be furred, but it'll be lined. And it basically wraps it from the inside out. I have hot glue on my palm. So, but right now we just have these little points, and sometimes as I'm working on them, they like to just run away, which is not our favorite. Is it seriously snowing right now? It sure is. It's snowing right now, guys. Sorry, I see a line on my camera. And I don't know if it's a fur. Don't worry, guys, I got it. I got the fur off of your face. So we got that. I need to cut another similar shaped 1-inch strip for these side. We're going to do these side pieces, and then we're going to do a crossbar. So that's a whole thing. Don't worry about it. It makes sense, I swear. And it doesn't help either that I need to sharpen my box cutter. Oh, fudge nuggets. There we go. And like some of these aren't great. Like this edge is not a good edge. But it's fine because we can put that on the bottom because all of this is going to get cut off eventually anyway. This got really wide. That's a really wide boy. That's alright. Okay. So now we're going to measure from here to this. Actually, it kind of needs to be the same length as this. So we'll just swoop. And then we will. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but it does, you know. It matters to my feelings more than anything else. There we go. So these are our 2 side strips that we're going to glue on. And then that's not going to be long enough, so this is now scrap. And I had a scrap foam bin, and I don't know where it went. I think I tossed them all because they all got really old and yellowed. And foam is only good for so long. Like, you'll see this foam has a little bit of bleaching, a little bit of yellowing right on the edge there. And that's just because I used to store it in front of a window, so it got sun bleached. It's still perfectly good foam, it's just a little yellow. But foam does deteriorate over time. It takes a long time, but it does do it. In some ways faster than others. Generally, exposure to oxygen and sunlight are the biggest things. So if you're storing foam, it's best not to store it in the sun. Which is why the foam has since been moved, but, you know, at the time that was the only place I had for storing my foam. I'm actually going to go grab that trash bag, since we're going to start carving stuff soon. Get these guys out of the way. Just because otherwise it's going to become scrap hell over here. And we're going to have 80,000 fucking pieces of foam all over. It's going to end up that way anyway, but it's easier if I can, you know, take them and put them rather than keep tossing them on my desk in my own way or on the floor and then have to clean it up later. Take all these extra pieces. Those are Mouseketeers we can use for the music. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Right, I want to do this. I'm going to trim him a little bit more because he's really wide, which, again, doesn't actually affect anything. But it hurts my feelings. Someday I'll learn how to cut a straight line. There we go. Now this is more the consistency I like. It's kind of like honey, where it's not super liquidy, it's kind of thick and sticky. And I find that that's the perfect consistency for hot glue. Because it sticks really well, it flows nicely, but it doesn't like run everywhere, and then it cools quickly. And I got hot glue on my palm. It's also not as bad when you burn yourself with it. Full high temp is, I've gotten 2nd degree burns from that quite a bit. My hands don't really feel shit no more. I can feel textures, but as far as temperature sensing goes, not really. I don't really feel nothing. A little warm. And that's a combo of touching high temp hot glue, getting burnt at McDonald's, touching frying pans at home because I'm stupid, you know, just existing life. It'd be like that. I'm gonna be careful right here because the edge of the foam is actually right there. And already we're covered in minky fuzzies. It's been 5 seconds. But I have gotten blisters on my hands from hot glue over the years. I've gotten a lot better about it. I've gotten very good at not getting hot glue on me. I say as I continuously peel off hot glue. I've gotten very good at not getting super hot glue on me. And that's the key. The key is temperature control and precision. Neither of which am I good at, so. Get off me, you little stringies. And now we'll get a new strip. And I'm actually going to cut this one really thin. You only need a 1/2 inch strip. Well, that was the worst cutting job of my life. Alright. I'm just gonna trim off a little bit of excess here. I got a nice thin strip here. And all this is to mark the bottom of our eye line, which is the bottom of our goggles. Because once when I come in with these 3.5 inch, they're gonna sit. I mean, this is the wrong eyeball. It's gonna be like that, but it'll sit right here into the perfect spacing between the headband and that, which is nice. Very, very nice. So I find that's just how I do it. That's how I find my shape. Because pretty much all of my fursuit eyes these days are 3.5 inch. Occasionally, very, very occasionally, depending on the suit and what other features it has, I may do smaller eyes. Usually it's on suits that have multiple eyes. For example, Mustard has 2 sets of eyes. His main set of eyes is 3.5 inch, but his secondary set is only 3 inch. Because it's kind of hard to fit 6 inches of eyeballs on a head. So if a character has a lot of eyes, they tend to get more. So now here's another thing, right? If we wanted it to be really wide, I could leave this loose, and that would give us this whole surface to work with, right? But we don't need it really wide. We're not doing a super wide head. If we were, I would have cut this down more. We can actually keep it pretty slightly tapered here, and have a good idea of how wide our head is supposed to be. I wish the camera would focus. That would be nice. There we go. So you can kind of see, right? Like, this is our framework for everything. But if I make it a lot looser, they'll end up with a wider head. But canines don't generally need heads that wide. This was going to be a 1/2 inch. So we're actually going to trim this guy down. Because he does not need to be 1 inch thick. That's just overkill. And it'll make your head super big. Just overall. We don't need to make a giant head for no reason. I cut that a little close, but that's okay. We can fix that. And first off, it's not really something that needs to be fixed. It's going to get, again, covered up with more structure here in a bit. But just for my sake, I am going to did I plug him back in? I did not. I'm going to have to plug that back in. This is also what I'll do towards the end of the fursuit head. I'll make these teeny tiny scrap pieces that are very, very thin, and they're very stretchy because they're so thin. And they're great for filling in spots like that need just a little bit more in them. I usually get it around the eye blanks. There's usually gaps that need to be filled. So I usually do it for that. Actually, these days, the issue I have with eyes is getting them to fit because of the lining. It used to be I had to make sure I cut the foam tighter than I wanted because it would squish out of the way afterwards. But with lining being glued on now around the eyes and stuff, it adds, first off, a layer of thickness because there's now fabric there, and stiffness. It doesn't really want to move and squish out of the way. So I kind of end up doing silly stuff like that. There we go. All better. Now we don't have that weird little gap. Again, it doesn't really matter. It's more just because I felt like it. I didn't like the vibes, okay? Had to fix the vibes. See, that's much better because now we've got our square shape kind of deal going on without having to make these be super loose for it to work. I don't want to pull them super tight, but now we're not going to have a giant bobblehead of a head either. Go like that, because I think that's pretty good tension now. And the inside of these actually, when the whole base structure of the head, like all of the shapes are together, the insides of these pieces are actually going to get carved down, so they take up less of a footprint, which means the inside of your head will be roomier without the outside being huge. It'll also make it easier for me to line afterwards, because differences in concave and convex shapes make it really hard to line a fursuit. Lining the inside of a fursuit head is much more difficult than one would think. Like, I don't know why. Don't ask me. I don't make the rules. But it is. And then we just want... what do we have going on? There we go. Because I think at some point our headband shifted just a little bit. Which means that this is slightly off-centered, but that's okay. Because as long as our muzzle is actually centered, that's what matters. This just kind of helps as a guide. Again, not really structural. This whole spot right here, gonna be gone. Most of this, gonna be gone. In fact, actually, I can kind of draw out for you guys what is probably going to be gone by the time we get everything else on our head done. Because odds are we're going to carve out like this and some of that. So this whole circle area is going to be gone. A lot of this is probably going to be gone, and this will definitely be gone. So it'll really just be these kind of things, and then a little bit of a side strip will remain by the end. It makes sense, I promise. But right now it doesn't matter, because that's future us's problem. I build heads in a weird way. I know a lot of people do the bucket head method. I don't. That's not how I learned. I saw that was a thing, and then I saw a different method on YouTube. I forget who the poster was. It was originally for moving jaw straps on a foam base, because that's what I wanted to do. It is possible. It's extremely difficult. And then I kind of just didn't. Now I don't do the moving jaws unless it's a pre-made base and not my own, because it's really hard to make moving jaws fit properly, because you have to fit right both horizontally and vertically overall, and that's a very hard thing to get correct, and plus it tends to dig into the neck. I just personally find them very uncomfortable, so it's not something that I generally offer. I certainly don't offer it on foam bases. Although I am trying to figure out a foam 3D print hybrid, so it'd probably be like the muzzle structure here would be 3D printed and the rest would be foam. Just so that way you have a hard base for your jaw, but then a lighter weight and more durable head base. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. That's future me's problem. Future me's probably never going to figure it out. Now we need to get a sheet of paper. We're going to use this guy. This is an invoice. We don't care about it. We don't care about the invoice. And again, I need to look at kind of his reference sheet here. I do appreciate the side view, I will say that. That does make my life a hell of a lot easier. Just in general. I'm going to actually bring that up a little more. There we go. Because that shows me generally how we actually want the head to look. I don't require it because it's not entirely necessary, but it is extremely helpful. You know, the more info the better type deal. This is actually a failed print that I use as a template because it is the right size, it just never did its walls. So if this right here is our eyeball, right? Pretend that this is a straight and solid surface here. Actually, let me tilt you guys so you can see what I'm doodling. Not that you can see it very well, but we've got eyeball right here, and then I've also marked top of the head, bottom of the strap, top of the strap, bottom of the chin. And this will show me, because like now I know if this is here, that's where my eyeballs are sitting, right? So we know that. But top of the strap is where our muzzle is actually going to end. So I'm going to go for a nice taper. And then we know bottom of the chin is where we want the bottom of our muzzle to be. So we're going to kind of... Right? So it's going to be something similar to that. Now, ultimately, we don't want it to look like this. We want a more gentle stop, more of a curve. And he doesn't really have a super big... This muzzle does kind of slant at an angle on the ref sheet, so we're just going to follow that. And now you'll see I am drawing this as a closed mouth muzzle, which is fine, because ultimately we're going to change things here. And then we're just gonna kind of draw out his nose. Right, nice big ol' schnoz. So he's got a very big snoot on his ref sheet. Now see, this is where we run into problems, because we've got this matches up really nice with the head, but then our eyeball sits really low, which ultimately just means that we're going to raise our eyes a little bit so that they are actually above. But we can also, just for our sake, take this lower jaw and slim it a bit, and then we will just add a little bit more length to the upper muzzle, so that will ultimately go like this, and that will sit on the show camera a little bit better, because I realize I'm probably not showing you guys shit. It'll be like so, and then our eyeballs will be right about there. Yeah. So I'm actually going to just cut this out as a better example real quick, so you can see it a little bit easier. So it'll be more like this, and like this. And of course, you know, it'll look like a dog, but that's a whole other thing for future us. So right now, I'm going to cut off his nose, because we're not doing his nose right now. That was just for future me's reference. Just so I could visualize it a little bit better. And then we are doing a pickable nose, so there's a couple different ways we can do it, and that's something I'll talk about with Commissioner later. Because we could do it where it's just the nose has, you know, a pickable slot through it, or we could actually have it go into the muzzle, into the head base, which would give you a little bit more breathability if that's what you're looking for. So this is going to be our muzzle shape. And then I am actually going to... Where's our teeth? Where's our smaller teeth? Right about there. So what I'm doing here is drawing out what's going to be the inside shape of our muzzle. And I'll be able to show you guys in a little bit how I do that. But we're going to have our outside pieces for the outer sides of the muzzle, and then our inside pieces, we don't need to trace the whole shape because I don't want to have to sit here and carve all this out. We're just going to trace this outer edge here that I've drawn. And this little edge just creates a spot for our teeth to glue into later. So it'll make more sense when we put our muzzle on, our whole head and stuff. Now I do know it has to be at least 4 inches, which I generally do for canines anyways, 4 or 5 inches, because we need to fit a fan mount inside the top of the mouth, which should be easy enough, right? So I'm gonna get these traced. I would show you guys, but that's way out in Texas for you, and I can't exactly rotate the camera this way. The camera does not rotate that far. That's okay. It is the one downside to changing to this perspective with the camera is you guys can't see what I'm doing when I do stuff in the rest of the room. So I traced our pieces for the outsides. I do actually want to save this piece of paper because it needs to connect back to our lower jaw for when we do that. And then this is our inner piece for the inside of the muzzle. Trace at least 2 of those. I'll trace a 3rd just in case, but I don't really think we're going to need a 3rd. In fact, actually, I'm not even going to bother tracing a 3rd. I lied. Why waste foam when you don't have to? There we go. Oh, I wish I hadn't done that. Alright. Current me just fucked shit up for future me, but that's okay. Future me can be mad at me later. I usually try to keep one end of the foam roll, the flat edge, a straight edge, because I need straight edges to do these pieces. And then the other edge tends to get wonky because I cut out all of these pieces. I did not do that. I used the flat edge to cut these pieces out from because I'm an idiot. But that's okay. We have more foam. It's not the end of the world. And honestly, odds are we're probably going to use up most of this roll anyway. just on doing the head base for this guy. Because this is just the upper muzzle, right? And we still have to do the, I call them the cheek pieces. They're just everything under the eye. We still have to do the lower jaw. And then we got to do like this upper section that comes, like the brow and the temple piece, I guess is what I would call it, would be the temple. And then we have to do the top of the head, and that all takes a lot of foam. So I'm not too worried. I do want to save these scraps though, because I might actually be able to do the lower jaw pieces on some of these scraps. So there's that piece. Oh, the hot glue gun's still plugged in. Which means it's way too hot for us right now, especially since we're not currently using it. There we go. All better. And I may have cut that a little bit too narrow, but that's okay. That's why we do cleanup carves. This is just getting them out of the foam. And also, you'd be surprised at how much smoothing the fur does for a base. Granted, the smoother the base, the better anyway, but which I do now have a pill shaver that I like to use for smoothing out some of the harder edges. Although I don't think it's going to last us too long, because it already sounds like it's struggling with life, which is sad. There we go. Alright, so I'll now actually be able to show you guys a bit more of what I actually mean by the muzzle pieces and like the inside versus the outside. I just traced the same side for both of these, so I'm going to go like this. It's very liquidy glue right now, and I'm not a fan. So, I'm going to line up the outer edge of our pieces as best I can, just because that will give us the smoothest outer shape. I don't care how the inside looks. Even when you're in suit, you can't really see it. So, the inside's a little wibbly wonky, that's fine. What matters is that the outside is a smooth and as flat as we can get it to edge. So then, you know, this will be this side of the muzzle, and then from inside the muzzle, it's going to be hollow all the way through. In fact, actually though, because this is 4 inches, and we are going to put a little bit more meat here, but ultimately we're going to taper this down, and I think that might be narrower than what we're looking for on this guy, because he's got a schnoz, like he's got a very big muzzle. So I might actually do that 5th layer and just taper this further to blend it out, because it'll be like kind of an in-between. I feel like the 4 inches is going to be too narrow for him. And this is why you'll see like all my head bases for canines, they do vary somewhat, a decent bit. But ultimately I won't decide this until I have both halves actually put together and I get a good look at them, because I might even, just because if I'm really indecisive about it, I might take a picture and overlay it with the reference sheet just to see if I put the head as big as I want the actual base to be in comparison. How does the muzzle compare as scale-wise, you know? The shape's not going to be exact, but this will at least give us an idea. Because our head is going to end up a little bit wider once we put the foam on that. So if we glue these together like so, right? And we're not worried about the fact that it's really thick here. That's future me's problem. But if we put it up on the head, and we consider, actually, you know what'll make this easier for us is if we actually taper these right now. So I'm going to do this. I'm not going for a perfect taper, I'm just going for a general idea. I say as I proceed to do way more than is necessary. But like you see now we've got a rounded out muzzle, and that took a decent amount off the side of the snoot. I'll do the same for this side. There we go. So now we can see really what our muzzle looks like on the head base. And yeah, you know, I don't think that looks bad actually. I think that looks pretty good, especially once we consider that we're coming out to here. Yeah, that looks good actually. The 4 inch is perfectly good. Like I said, very rarely do I actually use a 5 inch on a canine. And then once when you consider we're going to put a big ol' schnoz on him, it will look wider than it is if that makes sense. Get off of me. There we go. I think that was the one mistake I made on the twin suits, is I did not make their noses big enough, because I wanted them to have smaller noses than your general canines, but they ended up being too small. I went too far with it, and they looked a little less like canines and a little more like felines, which is not great. Not exactly what you want when you're going for German Shepherd, but it was a bit late by the time I realized, because, you know, the heads were pretty much done. And this hot glue is not liquidy at all. We do want to line this up, this edge. And like I said, I do not care what the inner edge looks like. The inner edge, kind of ugly, doesn't matter. Does not matter in the slightest that the inside is kind of ugly, because it's the inside. Nobody's going to see it. Not even us. Let me plug our hot glue and get it back in real quick. Hi, Bingo, how's it going? Yeah, got rough, huh? Alright. My computer cord is all up in my way. In fact, actually, let me do this. That will keep it out of my way. Cool beans. It also means I can't access any of my drawers, though, but that's fine. And then I do want to come back and re-glue some of these points here that are a little weak in the middle. But now that we know that our muzzle is only going to be 4 inches, we can accommodate for the rest of our head. Because we do actually only want it to go to like here, I believe, because we did this and that looked really funny. So I'm going to go like that, nice and low. Right. And then also we're going to consider that this is actually going to be more like this, because we're going to take out a lot of this, which requires me doing a doodle real quick. We're going to come halfway down these. Each of these sections is 1 inch wide. So, and our midsection is only going to be 1 inch. Right now it's going to look silly, but when it's furred, it's going to look wider than it actually is. And then we're going to kind of just cut straight over, not gonna lie. We just want to make sure that we are consistent about how we are cutting, so that way they are even on each side. At least as much as possible. So, there we go. And now we've got our carved out muzzle. And our eyes can sit right here. If I tilt you up a little bit so you can see. And then our eyes can sit right here. And it'll look much better later when he's not doofy looking. That would actually make for a really good worm muzzle. If we just never gave him a nose and left him like that. So now we can actually glue this entire edge here with the really liquidy glue, because I never unplugged the hot glue gun again, and now it's too hot. That's okay, that gives us extra time to work with it. Tomcat with big cheeks. Yeah. I've done a couple kitties with the real big old cheekers. Big old round kitties. So that will glue there, and then the sides of the muzzle will glue right about where those marker marks were, and eventually all that inner part is going to get cut off. There we go. And this actually works in our favor too, because then we can taper all that and whatnot. And this also means that the eyes, instead of sitting way back here right up against the goggles, are going to sit further forward, which means they won't be so close and you can wear bigger glasses, have more room, yada yada. All that fun stuff. And then we're going to do our cheek pieces also. But first we got to get our lower muzzle once when we get this guy glued together. But I still need to unplug the hot glue gun. He's too good at being glued. That's the downside to a wheelie chair. I wheelie all around everywhere. And then what's really important is actually making sure that he is angled properly. He really is glued. Because otherwise you'll get droop snoot, where the snoot droops. Nobody wants droop snoot. So we're just going to make sure that that's all glued in very nice. A little bit of droop ain't bad. A little bit of droop is natural, right? It's not perfectly straight. It's kind of a slope. But the last thing you want is for your snoot to like that. Because that's not... It's not how faces work. So we're just going to hold him and let him cool. Yeah? Are you good, Bingo? Are you a good baby? Bingus needs a bath. No soggy bottoms. Exactly, no soggy bottoms. Not in this house. Schneef schnorf. Schnauf. Schneef. We can actually, if we really want to, and I kind of do want to, we can... draw the idea of his schnoz right now. Doggy schnoot. Schneef schnorf, schneef schnorf. Now this is just a really rough sketch, don't worry about it. When we actually do his snoot, it's probably going to look a lot better than this. So now, our new problem is getting him glued onto this part. Making sure that he's nice and secure. Nice and secured. And and even. Even Stevens. Very important that he be evens and Stevens. No odd Sams. Get off of me! Get off of me! Stringies! I hate the hot glue stringies. They drive me nuts. Can I help you, sir? Oh, big stretch. Oh, big stretch. You got a big stretch going. Is being a stretching tool? Is being a super girl? Yeah, your tail's stuck under your butt, though. You can't wag it because it's stuck under you. I know, it's stuck under you. And this is where it's very important to have patience. I do not have patience. Alright, and we're not hot glued. Cool. This side is not. This side decided to join the rebels. Teenage rebellion at its worst. Ouch. Now, what time is it? It's only 4. What do you beat a butt for? It's only 4. Are we glued now? Yay, we're glued now. Alright. So, now we have to go back. And this is where we bring out this guy. What I really need is to do some paper surgery. Trust me, it'll make sense in a second. Skin graft. Alright. So, this is going to be our lower jaw. We want it to hang open, so that. But we don't want this pointy tip. So I'm just going to round it. And now I've got a nice rounded lower jaw. I'd like you to know someone the stream has motivated me to clean. Do you mean somehow the stream has motivated you to clean everything? I'm trying to understand what you typed at me, but at the clean. Can't complain about cleaning. Cleaning's good. Everybody loves a good clean house. Alright. And then, because we want actual space in our jaw, our middle pieces are going to look more like this. And then this way, our teeth are actually going to sit here, and they're going to peek out a little bit. And yeah, I can't go too shallow because there's only so much jaw. So we're going to trace these on some scrap, question mark. Ooh. I could trace one. Trace one on scrap. Oh, but I think that's too thin. Oh, no, it's perfect. Okay, cool. Trace exactly one on this scrap. fursuit muzzle, much like a dog muzzle, should have pant room. And you should be able to breathe when wearing your fursuit, which is why we're going to have the mouth ajar. And right now, it's not going to look very fursuity, but I do actually need to come in here and trim some edges. Because that's something I didn't do this time, was trim this edge, because I completely forgot. It doesn't need a whole lot of trimming, but that little bit of rounding does make a difference. There we go. But this will go on the bottom here, and then we'll actually, this actually doesn't look too bad, but we're going to come in with our next piece, and that will make the smile. This is just making the bones. Your bones don't smile, but your face sure do. That's the difference here. I don't need this piece, I need this piece. Hello, sir. Can I help you? No. Mm-mm. What do you want? The baby man's staring at me. What do you want, bud? Nothing? Cool. Sweet. Yeah, see, this is the same thing I always do, bud. It's called my job. It's kind of important. Sweet. Okay. I don't know what he was up to, but he sure was. Sweet. You're in my way, bud. Go. Skedaddle. Scoot your boot. Thank you. Little butt. Little booty butt head. Alright. And now I got a nice other little chunk. Whee. There we go. I think I need to sharpen these scissors. Time to get out the tin foil. Ah! I lost my chunk. I'm just very focused on cutting these like 2 whole pieces of foam. There we go. Ah! so many fuzzies, little foam pieces. Alright. These are our actual pieces. The rest of this is junk. So, grabbing garbage bagging. Some of these will be useful for later. Most of them will not. I need to professionally organize fridges. You could. I'm sure that's a thing. I'm sure that's something people pay for. I mean, I feel like the same people that organize closets probably organize fridges. Pantries. They're technically just cold closets. Especially if it's a walk-in fridge. There we go. Alright. It's all the random foam chunks in their bag. So now we get to do the same thing we did with the upper jaw, but to the lower jaw. Garages also make sense. I feel like there's so many people that have random shit in their garages. This is not warm enough. Hot glue blob. We need to do our storage unit, but that's... Apparently it's not spring. Oh, it's not snowing anymore. Hooray. They can't seem to make up its mind. Oh, the poor neighbors lost some of their gutter. That sucks. Well. They also lost their trash cans today. Their whole yard kind of went into chaos. It was that windy. It was stupid windy outside. Yeah, so the neighbors got their free-range trash cans going. And they're missing part of their gutter now. But it's not snowing anymore, so, you know, small wins. I'm just making a mess, I think. Oh, that was really strong hot glue, though. There we go. Stick. No, apparently not. I thought I had less stick than I did because it wasn't squeezing out very well. Are you just telling me my stick is being a butthole? It's a bad glue stick. I mean, really, what's the difference between a garage and a fridge, though? I guess you use the stuff in your fridge. Nobody really uses the stuff in the garage too often. Frequently moved stuff and frequently not moved stuff. I mean, what is that one container of mystery leftovers in the back of my fridge if not frequently not moved stuff? What about that one dairy product that everybody has that they know for a fact is past the expiration, but it's all the way pushed in the very, very back for God knows how long, and now you're scared to take it out of the fridge? Because that means you have to touch the yucky thing. And also move all the stuff out of the way to get to it. Oh, shit. Unglue. Where's the wrong side? I need to glue this side. Good thing I noticed now rather than later. It would have been a pain in the butt to take that apart once when it dried. That's alright, I'm just pre-gluing for, I don't know, something. I just threw that container away. I think it was soup. See? And this is why people have to keep buying containers or finding new ones and made out of old butter containers, because God knows what's in them. God knows how bad and gross it is. There have been a couple times where I've thrown away a container because it was yucky. Yucky, yucky grossness. Puff back up, please. You got too squeezed. Now this is our lower jaw. But as we can see, it looks fucking stupid. We're looking like Roxy the pirate. It's not great. Except now we know how to make Roxy. Or Foxy, or whichever version. They have very... I'm just now realizing they have very wide lower, square lower jaws. This is when I start my FNAF era. We can't. That era is already come and gone. It can't return. It shan't return. Not ignoring the problems if they aren't there. That's true. Listen, anything cannot be a problem if you just decide it's not a problem. Is that the healthy way to go about things? Absolutely the fuck not. But is that a way to go about things? Yes. And now we're going to trim the shape of our lower jaw to actually be, you know, shapy. Might have been a little bit too much, but that's okay. Okay, that definitely was more than I wanted. I might have to remake this piece altogether. See, this part right here is way too narrow. Let me see if I can't fix it by gluing on like a this piece. Oh, much better. I probably do still need to put another piece down at the bottom, too. Nothing wrong with filling in our chunks. Why do you think ex-husbands disappear? Exactly. Carrie Underwood sang about that once. Is she still doing stuff? Does that date me if I say Carrie Underwood? Does that make me old? Much better. It's a way more even shape now. Cool. You didn't have to waste a bunch of foam remaking it. And that is a much better looking lower jaw. And then it's going to sit like this, which is nice and open, but not, you know, so that's pretty good. Good shit. It makes me middle-aged. Buddy, I ain't middle-aged. I ain't even close. I think by most standards, I'm still considered young adult. Or at the most, adult. Buddy, my age is showing. Where? Just like my genius. Yeah. I'm covered in little hot glue bits. You want to talk about my age showing? We could talk about how I played Atari and Game Boy as a kid. That's my age. Back in my day, we didn't have no fancy smartphones. The iPhone wasn't invented yet. We had flip phones. And Tamagotchis. Shivers and Young. You're a dork. I hate to tell you, bud, but you were also born before the iPhone. I remember when that first came out, and we all thought it was fucking stupid. And then now here we are, everybody got a smartphone. Can't live without it. Or you'll die. Big tech will murder you. Not really, but... But I also couldn't have invented it. I was like 8. The best I could have invented was a much better mud pie in the backyard. Or like, I did have rock soup. On the really hot summer days, you'd heat up some rocks on the pavement. Lots of rocks, preferably. And you would cycle through them. So you'd put the hot rocks in the water, put other rocks out in the sun, and then by the time the rocks in the water got too cold again, you'd take them out and put the newer hot rocks in, and eventually, soup. But back in my day, we drank out of the hose, and it gave us autism. It wasn't the Tylenol. It was the lead. I had rocks. We didn't have an oven. We used to have the pizza stove. The butt rock. My dad used to sit on a rock and warm it up with his ass cheeks. We didn't have TV growing up. We just used to look through our neighbor's window. There we go. And now hopefully if his jaw decides to cooperate, it will stay on until we get it more secure. Because it gets joined right there, and then also we're going to have our cheek panels. Our thing is fucking sliding. There we go. Our cheek panels are going to come across, and they're going to attach here, and they're going to attach here onto our muzzle. So dumb. Yeah. Yeah. I miss the Markiplier makes. Those were good videos. I liked the creme brulee one where he found out he had 5 ovens. I think I quote that a lot. I quote that one a lot specifically because there's the whole thing with Ethan's creme brulee where he didn't separate the egg whites. So it's just... it tastes. And that's what I say about food. When I don't know what it tastes like, it just tastes. Oh yeah, the pancake. Mr. Buttersworth fish pie. I think someone's making a dating sim that is all of his personas, and I really hope they get Mr. Buttersworth in there, because that would be hilarious. That would be such a call. Stan the Waterman better be in there. That's a given. You gotta have Stan the Waterman. It's required. I actually need another piece of paper now, though, because I don't think the one I had has enough left for this piece. Why aren't you over my business, bitch? God, did you see the new video they just did? The Super Golf Wars or whatever it is. I don't know, Super Golf. Fucking hilarious. Alright, so this is going to be the bottom of our eyes, right? Our eyes are going to sit right here. So, we're going to call the top edge of this paper the top edge of our eyes. I'm just going to roughly trace where I can feel the jaw is. The hot glue gun would get out of my way. That's pretty close. But if we do that, then we also have to trace that back edge, which is at an angle. You can see that, oh, this is kind of at an angle here. We don't want that. We want it to be mostly straight. So now that we know where our pieces generally are, right? This is what our muzzle's got going on right now. And this side angle actually looks really freaking good, I'm not gonna lie. So we're just gonna come in. I kind of want to fill up like halfway up the cheeks, maybe. I'm gonna make it a little bit longer just in case. And we're really gonna emphasize that smile we got going on. And the same thing here. We're gonna come about halfway down here, and then we are going to curve, because we don't, we're making baby registry so people will stop telling me to. Apparently people really want to just buy. I also want to just buy shit, buddy. I don't know about a baby registry, but I might just go to Walmart and then just show up with baby stuff for you, because like, I wanna. So his jawline isn't particularly rounded, it's actually a little bit angular, which means we can go a bit more like this and get rid of that lower curve. Put that here, right? Yeah, and then his cheek floof will come off right here, and it will accent the whole thing. You don't even know what it is yet. I mean, other than a baby, but like, do you have a theme? Any and all clothes, towels, blankets, just no binkies. I'm trying to thug it out. That's fair. But a baby's gonna suck on whatever it finds. It's gonna want to shove shit in its mouth, so good luck with that. Do you have a theme that you're going for? Or are we just going anything that looks vaguely cute? Because I'm down for whatever. Noah wants to buy dinosaurs. Because he wants to buy the dinosaur stuff. We could try to find, like, neutral-ish. So, dinosaurs. Earthy green, brown, light blue, gray, white. You're going for that millennial fucking gray bullshit. I'm gonna buy you something stupidly vibrant. Your kid's gotta have some color in its life. Dinosaurs! I was also thinking like cute little foxes. We'll do all the cute stuff. And then we can get more specific when it's like closer to. Ah, gotcha. So brighter, saturated colors. Alright, so this is going to be our cheek shape right here. You can kind of see. And this excess will get cut off later, once when we get it all glued on. And then this will build up the whole front of our face. And he's going to look super cute. This is very much a trust it kind of process, and much like you guys, I also don't trust it, ever. So don't be surprised if it looks like shit. It usually looks like shit until the very end, and then suddenly it just works. Like, I'm surprised the muzzle looks as good as it does right now, because usually this shit does not look good. It usually just looks bad for forever. Where's my Sharpie? Oh, it's over there. Okay. The big stuff. Forrest, I'm glad you don't give a fuck about any object coming past you like that. You're such a good boy. Yes, you are. Oh, big stretch. There's no good way to put this piece on here. Unless... I'm too old for this. Alright. I only have white walls, so I gotta try my best. Put up, like, decorations. Someday I'll get a house. And I'll paint it. I don't know what I'll paint it, but I'll paint it. Probably some like weird mandala shit. I'm just bad at that. That's fair, that's fair. I like doing like non-traditional colors. Well, exactly, that's what most people do. You know, you paint it, and then before you move out, you paint the walls white. The hard part is that you can't really do any dark colors because white won't cover any dark colors. And if you do any really saturated colors, you're gonna have to do at least a couple coats. But otherwise, you know, as long as it's white before you move out, who cares? Ooh, yeah. Are we talking like a minty green or like a sage green? Or like an avocado? Because those are all very different greens. One looks like vomit, and it's the avocado. Sage is a cute one. I think you could get away with a minty green, but it has to be like the right minty green, you know? Sage is a bit more of a gray green, so it blends with a lot of neutrals better and a lot of other colors. I just threw stuff everywhere instead of into the bag because I just went. Alright. I think what we're going to do, because I do have to get ready for dinner here in a bit. Gourmet mac and cheese and hot dogs. I'm just going to carve these pieces really quick. There we go. I'm going to carve these pieces, and then we're going to call it good for stream, because I don't know that I'm going to have time to actually glue them on stream. But I'll probably make some decent progress off of stream later after dinner. Eeh. It'll probably be like most days when I make a head base. Usually I make a head base in the span of like 2 days or so. Because what usually happens is I get up to like this portion or maybe even the sides, and then the next day I do the very top and the ears. Because the ears on their own take a lot of time. Just because it takes a lot of templating and whatnot to get it right in the shape you want, and then you gotta put them together like the muzzle twice, and it's a whole thing. And then you gotta actually glue them on, you know. And sometimes you glue them on and you realize that fucking sucks, then you gotta rip them off, you gotta do new ones. There we go. Now this part I am trimming extremely thin. Because we really want this to blend into the muzzle in like a smooth transition as much as we can. So it'll be like this, which means I gotta taper this a little bit more too. And there's foam on my nose now. So now that looks like that, and it will get taped down. It'll get glued down to here, like so. So that's not bad. I might want to taper this just a little bit more. That might have been too much, but oh well. It's not one of those parts that's super particular. So there's one side, and now we gotta make the other side look exactly the same. And that's the hard part. A smart person would do it trim by trim, cut by cut. I am chop happy, so I just did the whole thing, and now I gotta remember what the fuck I did. And this is why my sides are never perfectly symmetrical, but that's also why we pattern the way we do. We force it to be symmetrical. Shush, bud. The neighbors are rescuing their free-range trash cans. Leave them be. Really? Is that how you feel? No. Shush. No. Forest. I will not tell you again. Just walks out of the office grumbling. If you bark, you're gonna go in timeout, you hear me? Yeah, you be a good boy. You're trying your best. He's trying to look at them. No. Good boy. I don't know if you guys can hear him grumbling. Are you grumbling? He's trying so hard to be a good boy. He just really likes yelling at people. Say hi, don't you, bud? This one did not taper as nicely as the other side did, unfortunately. This one looks really ugly. But it exists. I'm gonna round out this little. So now I got two mostly identical pieces. This one's a little bit thicker, so we're probably gonna end up patterning on the left side just because the left side's going to be thinner overall. Which will help make our fur not be lumpy and make our sides look symmetrical. Very rarely do I pattern on the right side. And that's just because I'm really bad at cutting the left side. I'm right-handed, so it makes cutting for the left-handed angles difficult. Pieces of foam. Alright. But that is unfortunately, I believe, as far as we're going to get today. On stream anyway. So, we'll find a raid, and we will skedaddle. And then I'm going to go make some dinner, because the dogs are hungry, and I'm sure Bingus wants dinner. She wants some food. It's her dinner time. She's like, yep, it is dinner time. So let's see who we can raid. Who's out here doing things? Ooh, someone's making a mini house. Let's go bug them. We're gonna go check them out, see what they got going for their little mini house. It's gonna look cool. And then I'm gonna go and have some dinner. So, I will see you guys on Wednesday, hopefully. And then we'll go from there. Maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. We'll find out. Bye, guys.